we've got 11 different potential cold calling lead sources to go after. And you and I are going to go through and rank each one best to worst and talk through to the audience so that they leave today saying, okay, I know where to prioritize my time. We'll give them tips and strategies on where to find this information, et cetera, et cetera. But the biggest question is the who.
Yeah. And of course, there's going to be a non-exhaustive list, right? There's literally millions and millions of people that we could call, that we could bucket them in different ways. These are the 11 sources that we consider most popular. And hey, look, here's the thing. Some people might disagree with us on where we rank these. This is all from our experience, who we've called, and our experience of working with a ton of agents on who the best and worst people might be to call. And even if they're at the bottom of the list, it doesn't mean you don't call those people. It just maybe means there's higher priorities.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's a really good place to jump in is like, what's the context in which we're going to rank these? This is going to be for the real estate agent who needs listings as fast as possible, needs cash flow as fast as possible. Really, those two things. This is not for the agent who has an existing business, who's been doing this for 10, 15, 18 years, who's getting a ton of referrals, because these lead sources would be different for those people. And I think to your point, some of those people are like, dude, I totally disagree with you guys. Well, under this context of someone who we're going to build out what we call a cash flow prospecting model, Tucker, the same way we would coach an agent who says, dude, I need to make money as fast as possible. That's the context in which we're going to rank these. You agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it.
All right, let me share my screen and we'll rock and roll. So let's do this. All right, so once this pops up, okay. So we have these list of lead sources here on the right-hand side, and then we're going to rank them. So again, when we talk about ranking these, the first one that we come up with is going to be in that number one spot. Because why, Tucker? Why would we're not going to say what it is just yet, but like, how are we coming up with the rank?
I want someone, if I'm going to rank what is my number one source, I want someone who has minimal competition. I want someone who I can call them right now and I could have a listing tonight, and maybe even have them on the market by the end of the week. Um,
So
that's
talk to
really
us,
what I'm looking for.
talk about competition, because I think that's really important that most agents don't consider.
Yeah, definitely. So, we can all see these different lead pillars on the right, correct?
Yep.
Everyone who's ever called an expired or a FISBO before knows that there's 200 other agents calling that person. That's a really high level of competition. And the biggest factor in that, I mean, it's not your sales skills. It's not how you present to them. It's, are you the first voice? Are you the first person to contact that person? That's going to be the highest chance of having success for them, because you're going to get in front of them and talk to them and showcase yourself before anyone else has a chance. You're going to fill up their calendar with yourself before other people can fill up on their calendar. There's no spot left for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Okay. So what would you rank number one? And then we'll talk about why you would rank it there.
Number one, best is early expired. And
Okay.
so
So
early expired is that's that person who they come off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Everyone else is going to wait until 8 a.m. the following day when the data hits their Vulcan 7, and they're going to call that person 8 a.m. tomorrow. Well, I'm going to call them when they come off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm calling them at 2:01 because I've already skip traced them. I've got their MLS. I got the MLS sending me a notification. I'm calling them. I'm going to see if I can meet with them in a couple hours.
yeah. So totally agree. So when we look at this and we say, okay, the expired listing A has, we know that they're already motivated to sell. I mean, their house was just on the market a minute ago, right? That's number one. So we know that they have motivation to do something. That's what makes this business so hard, is like finding people that want to do something. Unlike if you and I were in the mortgage business, or if we were in the insurance business, every single person who owns a home would be a prospective client. In real estate, it's not that way, right? You've got to first find people that want to move. That's the hardest part. So in this world, we've got the lowest hanging fruit of people with their hands in the sky, which is an expired listing who was just on the market literally 1 minute ago when you get the notification that they come off the market. That's number one. Number two, we also have evidence that they see value in having a listing agent, right? Unlike other lead sources, we don't know that for sure. We're going to do our best to communicate that value, but with an early expired, we know that the two most important things when it comes to where we're going to put our attention and energy already fit the bucket. We already know this person wants to sell, and we know that they are, at some point, they've understood the value of having representation, but that agent has let them down. That's the way I see an expired listing, Tucker. I don't know if you see it differently. I look at it as their agent let them down, which is like the greatest opportunity for someone like you or myself or a great agent out there to go and communicate with. So the early expired, again, it's Thursday afternoon. You're doing what you're doing. You have yourself set up in the MLS to say anytime something comes off the market, you're going to get a notification in real time with an email, and then you can skip trace that and contact that person immediately, correct?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Because to your point, what happens, what most agents do when they're in the expired lead category is they do exactly, Tucker, what you said, is they do the same thing everybody else does. They get their data from, one of these data providers, and then they attempt to call the homeowner at 8 a.m. the following day. And their number one problem is A, getting the person to pick up the phone because they're getting blown up by every single other agent. And then B, when they get them on the phone, they're so upset at the fact that A, their home didn't sell, and B, they're getting their phone blown up at 8 a.m. in the morning. You've got to get past all of that. An early expired gets you the best of both worlds, gets you the highest motivated lead, no competition, and you're the first voice. So you don't have to worry about any of the frustration. Fair?
Yeah. And the bonus to it is when the next day rolls over, and let's say you have, I don't know, 10 expireds or withdrawals or canceled, hit your Vulcan 7, you've already talked to, let's say, 7 of them. So you're only fighting for 3 of them. Everyone else is going through the other total of them, the other 7, the other 10. Everyone's going for those. You're only calling 3 of them. So you have a much higher likelihood of, even when the next day rolls over for those daily expires, that you're going to have a much higher likelihood of connecting with that person too.
Yep. And I'll just put as a note, when we talk about expire, we're also looking at the withdrawn as well. Just so people don't get confused and they're like, well, what about withdrawns? So we just call them off market, right? So anything that leaves the market unsold would be in this category. You agree with that?
Yep. Catch-all term for your expireds, withdrawals, canceled, all that.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Let's move on to rank number 2. What would you rank number 2?
So this is where I don't know. I think it's close either between your FISBOs or your daily expireds. If I had to pick between one or the other, I think I'm going with FISBO. And the reason why is because that person is on the market right now. You don't need to convince them to go to market or anything like that. Or whereas a expired or withdrawn, they may be tired. They want to go. They want to wait 3 more months. Something like that. This person's actively on the market right now. They're still raising their hand that they want to sell, and so it makes the conversion a little bit easier, in my opinion.
So it's funny. I thought we were going to have to debate this, and I am 1,000% on the same page with you. Because with a for sale by owner, the same way with the early expireds, you can also set yourself up with a notification from like Zillow, right? Be the first voice. Actually, let me take a step back. Be the first experience this homeowner has when they decided to put up their house for sale. The first experience before they talk to any prospective buyer, before they get blown up by investors, before they get blown up by other agents, et cetera, et cetera. You are their first experience. And because you're their first experience, if you really approach this the way in which we teach, Tucker, there's a lot of upside to being that first experience with these people. And it's so easy to convert a first conversation for sale by owner into a seller lead. Like, it is so easy to do it. We'll save that for another episode. But I 100% agree with you that because of the ability to be the first voice on both of these lead sources, they have to be the top priority. So in a practical sense, you're going about your day. You could be calling these people throughout the day based on real time. So yes, we're talking about speed to lead here. And you might get a notification from Zillow at 3 in the afternoon that a new for sale by owner in your market just hit the market. Boom, you could be the first voice. The same way with the early expired withdrawn. All right. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it.
All right, beautiful. Let's go on to number 3. What do you see?
I'm going with your daily expireds. This is the one. It's high priority. If you need cash flow in your business, that's probably the person who's going to be one probably easiest to contact. There's the data's plentiful out there. You're going to be in higher competition. We've already kind of covered all the reasons why. These are the people that they're coming off. They're coming off the market, and you're calling them at 8 a.m. the following day.
Yeah.
I'm going daily expires on that rank.
Yeah. Yeah. I can agree with that. I'm good with you on that. It's not going to be easy. I'll just add that. Like, I'll set expectations, Tucker. Like, you're going to compete with guys like Tucker and myself with these daily expireds. Competition is going to be really fierce. This is why your skills really, really are important. We won't get into that today, but like how you approach that conversation will make the difference on whether or not you get a lead or an appointment. But yes, from an opportunistic standpoint, the daily expired probably makes the most sense. All right, let's go on to number 4. How do you see number 4?
All right. I think this is where we're maybe going to be getting into controversial territory here.
Sure.
So this one, if you need cash flow, you need to turn over leads now. I'm actually going to go with either probably probate. I think I'm going to go with probate on this one. Um, so for people that don't know probate, it's someone passed away. You have to be highly empathetic and be able to navigate that process. But a lot of times these people are in a lot of pain because they have now this home that they can't afford or they don't want to deal with it, whatever it may be. And they need our services to help get that home sold and moved on. Those can be a very quick turnaround as you navigate the probate process.
Yeah. I see this one a little different. Based on kind of how we're approaching this with, to your point, getting cash flow as quickly as possible. I'm actually going to go with old expireds. And when I say old expired, that can mean many different things. It could be 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months, 1 year, 3, 4, 5 years. But here's what I know is that there's a large, as much as there's a portion of new expireds that relist right away, there's that much or more that don't relist right away. That, a matter of fact, when we look at all the studies, there's a huge portion of people that come off the market that literally take a break from the market. And we see all those re-entering the market in like 3 to 6 months later. And so as a result, like if you call old expireds, and in this case, we'll say 3 to 6 month old expireds, that's kind of like the sweet spot of these people re-entering the marketplace. And that's number 1. Number 2, and what we also know is that most agents, when it comes to lead follow-up, are absolutely awful. And so you get the upside of a great motivated seller lead and the benefit of competition falling off the map. Because most agents are so focused on the daily expired, to your point, if they don't get the appointment within the first couple of weeks, they don't have the systems, the processes, the organization to follow up with these people for 6, 7 months in the future. And so they stop calling them. And so
Yeah.
I would make the argument that the old expired comes in the 4th spot. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. As I'm hearing you talk about it, I guess this is why you're the sales guy because you're selling it to me here. So I I agree with you. I have found some absolute gold in old expired. Just someone who I sold a couple weeks ago, she expired or went off the market back in November of 2022. I sold her house we sold for 775, and then I helped her buy a new house for 350. So that's 1.1 million in transactions from someone who no one's calling her anymore. Everyone's forgotten about her. She's fallen off, but she still needed to sell. And so
Yeah.
and that's just one story. There's plenty others outside of it. Yeah, there's some absolute gold that you can get turned over in old expireds quickly just because everyone else has forgotten about them.
Yeah, and I would go as far as Tucker to make the argument that it may even for me take the 3rd spot. And the reason for that is if you just look at the first rank, it's like if you can get to most early expireds before that, before 8 a.m. the following day, and you're just calling the ones you didn't on the daily, like it's going to be really difficult. This is where agents all the time say, dude, I spent 2 hours calling the new expireds and talked to 2 humans. So when you guys talk about 7 contacts per hour, not with new expireds, you and I both know, and both would probably agree, if you're going to call new expireds at 8 a.m., your contact rate is going to be dog doo-doo. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you spent the same
Absolutely.
time calling old expireds, it's probably going to be a lot higher, a lot more enjoyable, and to your point, get a lot more gold. And so, I don't know. I might even replace 3 and 4, but certainly I think we both can agree that old expired would land on 4 at the very least. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I agree
perfect.
with it. We're probably just splitting hairs.
Okay, fair enough. And what Tucker said at the beginning of the episode is exactly right. It's not that you just have to. We should say this too. You're not going to call all 11. You should pick 3 to 5. You should pick 3 to 5 sources is all you need from a prospecting perspective. Maybe we'll break that down a little bit at the end. But all right, number 4, we're dialed in, old, expireds. Let's go on to number 5. How do you see number 5 from the
Well,
list?
I had probate in for number
Yeah.
4, so I would just slide it down to number 5. I'm going to stick with that one because there I've had some great opportunities in probate.
Again, all right. So I see this. I see this a bit different too. In building my career, I've had just such great success with absentee owners. It depends on your market, but the absentee owner for me, Tucker, would
Yeah,
probably be my number 5 for a couple of reasons. Number one, when we go back to how we're ranking these things and you're taking into consideration competition, probate does bring more competition potentially than an absentee owner. Um,
yeah. Can I jump in on that?
yeah, please, because I got a couple thoughts too. Yeah, but go ahead.
So absentee owner, this is why I disagree and why I rank absentee owner a little bit lower. Um, I almost see an absentee owner as okay. So like I have a fair amount of rental property. My phone gets blown up all day. And anybody that's listening to this, you know the pain of your phone blowing up all day every day because you're an out of state absentee owner, and it is relentless to the point where I almost can't use my phone sometimes. And so because of that, it's like I pick up the phone as soon as I hear that it's, a realtor or someone else, like I'm hanging up. Like I'm just not heard it so many times. And so the competition's so fierce that
Hmm.
it's it's tough to break through that. It is tough to break through the noise when we have tactics to do that. We had Antonio on a testimonial a couple weeks ago. He took 9 absentee owners in the past 30 days. So I'd say it's not possible. Like if you can get that, good on you. Like, go for it. If I'm talking about from personal experience as an absentee owner, I'm not on the other side of it. I'm probably not going to rank this one as high.
Yeah, and then the counter to that would be so my wife and I did the same thing, right? So we bought rentals for damn near, I don't know, 20 years before we sold them all in 2022. And I rarely, if ever, got contacted, ever. And we had a lot of rental properties. I mean, we invested in it for almost 20 years. Um, but I would also say to counter that and just give you this argument, and then we can figure out where we want to go from here, is the probate. If you look at the journey of when a real estate agent would prospect a probate versus an absentee owner, couple of things on this. The probate, when you get the lead, most of the time is early in their journey. And this person that is the executor of the estate, I think it's safe to say, it's probably an understatement, that they're going through absolute overwhelm. They don't know. I mean, they're dealing with so much on their plate that oftentimes they're just not in the state of mind. Yes, sometimes it works, but most of the time it turns into a longer term nurture where the conversion of those are a little bit longer term. Whereas you call absentee owners, and it depends on who you get on the phone. If you get a Tucker, a young guy who's building your wealth, that's different than calling a list of absentee owners that are 65 years or older. Now they've rode the wave of this investment to the point where now the investment's going to turn into realizing their gains in retirement years, and they have 20 years of pain of managing rentals. So their pain threshold or their pain point is really high of like, I'm just done being a landlord. I've paid the price of, I've invested in my 401k and I've been buying these rentals. We're over this. And oftentimes people are like, yep, we're going to get rid of the 3 or 5 rentals that we've had for 25 years. Those people have a lot of pain, and it's easy for a real estate agent that they don't have a relationship with to come in there and serve them at a high level. And the number of them. So if you look at an Austin, Texas, or Detroit, Michigan, or whatever, I mean, you are talking about, like, if you were to pull a list of all absentee owners and, we'll call Tampa, Florida, or you look at absentee owners in Myrtle Beach, dude, you're talking about thousands and enough to feed your entire career. So plentiful opportunity, and then a real opportunity to help somebody who's in pain. Yes, the probate has a ton of pain too, but that's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's fair. I can get behind that.
And I almost forgot. Here's the other problem. I love probates. Again, these are all good. Probates do require a higher level of understanding than your like traditional real estate sale. So like, you're not having to deal with the court, you're not having to dealing with attorneys, you don't have to deal with, having, all the technicalities like letters of authority and who can sign the listing contract, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For the agent, remember, the context in which we're having this conversation is the new agent who is just starting their career, who's trying to build their business. Probate brings a lot of nuance to a transaction that a newer agent just doesn't have the experience with. Where they can call an absentee owner, it's like, yeah, it's funny you should call. You know what I mean? There's just a lot less headache you got to deal with.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, if we're going back to how we're basing this on one timeline to cash flow, and that this is, new agent, easier transactions, then yeah, absentee owner. I put absentee owner there.
All right, deal. All right, let's move on. So we go to number 6. So I know that obviously you would say it's probate. I'm just going to challenge. I'm going to go ahead.
If I'm being reminded of our criteria on this for the audience, then I probably would put Furbos here versus anything else.
Exactly what I was going to say. So for rent by owner, just for the audience sake, Tucker, that doesn't understand that, can you tell them exactly what that is?
Yeah, this is for rent by owner. So this is someone who they have a rental property. Obviously, they don't live there either, so it's very close to an absentee owner. An absentee owner may have the home vacant, or they may have it currently rented. For rent by owner means it's currently vacant or it's about to be vacant, and they're getting a new lease lined up, and they're renting it out themselves. So they also probably don't have property management there. They have a little more pain, a little more headache dealing with the property. All these things to factor in. So with that, a for rent by owner, the other plus side too is if you are looking for some quick cash, you want to build a relationship with this person, you could call them and get the home leased for them just to get a little bit more cash in the door while you're waiting, and then you can put them into your nurture system over the next year when that lease comes up, and then hey, maybe they're going to be calling you at that point to sell again, or maybe they want to lease it again, so you have a little bit of recurring revenue there.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. It's one of the best ways to build recurring revenue as a real estate agent is because the for rent by owner is somebody who, to Tucker's point, has some type of rental property who is actively looking for a new tenant. So it's listed. It's like a for sale by owner, right? That's selling the home. The for rent by owner has their property listed for lease. So they're looking for a new tenant. And oftentimes you could build relationships, build a huge database of these people. And a lot of agents make a great business out of this, where they're managing these rentals. They're getting paid on the lease, they're getting paid on the management, and then that's their listing inventory. So as they're managing these relationships and these assets under management, we call them, people buy and sell all the time. You get the sales piece of that business too.
Yep,
All right.
exactly.
All right. Then I think that I'm in agreement. We could just put probate as number 7. Is that fair?
Yep, I think that's fair.
All right, cool. So let's do that. So probate, we're going to go into number 7 for all the reasons we've already discussed. So now let's get into an argument around number 8. So we've got downsizers, divorce, circle prospecting, and I split bullseye from circle prospecting. And we'll get to that later, but let's talk about the number 8 spot. What do you see as number 8?
Yeah, this one, when we're getting down here towards the bottom, I'm going back and forth a lot of them. I probably am going to put divorce here. It's going to be a little more difficult to get the list. You probably have to like find it from maybe there's an attorney or a title company or um, getting a VA or someone to like scrub it from the local courthouses. To be a little more difficult to actually get the data, but there's pain. They're probably going to have to sell the house. You need to know how to manage that relationship, navigate the legal side of it and everything. But I'd probably say that's where divorce would come in if we're thinking about timeline to get some cash.
Yeah. So similar to the for rent by owner probate debate we had, I'm going to start a new one. To me, number 8 is clearly the downsizer. And the reason for that is this. It's when we look at people who, you see, the problem with lead generation and prospecting is kind of like we talked about. It's you live in this community of tens of thousands of people, and people don't make a move that often. If you were to look at the people and the transactions, if you were able to source all of them, there are some reports around the largest pool of closings in any market are baby boomers, right? These people that are downsizing. It's the largest portion of transactional closings that happen in any given market. And so the downsizer for the audience is the person who we categorize that is of retirement age in a property that's paid off or free and clear. And it is in a home that is larger than the average home, so that we know the likelihood of them. Oh, and number 4, the biggest one, they've been in that home for more than 20 years. So we know that they haven't already downsized, right? So those 4 criteria is what we mean by downsizer. We know that the likelihood for that demographic to sell is so high and the competition so low, you can make the argument there is zero competition with that source. And then the same thing with the probate. With divorce, there's as much or more nuance. I mean, could you imagine, I guess this is part of my argument, could you imagine new agent Bob is prospecting divorce and he gets one, and that new agent is called in by the divorce judge to testify in court based on their CMA? Like how tight their butthole would be puckered up. Like they would be like, I don't even know how to do a CMA. Like I'm going to go testify in court around my CMA and get absolutely exposed. No chance. I cannot even risk that. And so for those reasons, I think that the downsizer, if you're calling a list of 1,000 downsizers in your market, in the area you want, at the price point you want, with the type of product that you want, and have no competition, and I mean, serving a community that really needs it, like elderly people, and they have their wealth built into all this equity that they raise their kids, et cetera, et cetera. That's I love working with the older folks, because it's like, dude, they have this home that they built, this family, and then we get to realize all those gains, then go buy something as a buyer with cash. Most of my downsizer clients are all cash buyers. So I get the best of both worlds. You get 2 transactions for the price of 1. I don't know. To me, downsizers is the clear winner here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree with that. And plus, I mean, you kind of said it like, love working with older folks. Honestly, older folks love working with me because I just bat my blue eyes at them and they just can't help themselves. They're like, I've literally had, Angelo and Marianne, if y'all are watching this, I remember when you told me that I remind you of your son. And that's why you decided to sign with me. So I just, like I said, bat my blue eyes at them. They can't help themselves. They just sign.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
On that though, Brandon, I mean, just because you brought up all the difficulties of divorce. And personally, like I don't have experience in divorce. I'm kind of going off of like other people's knowledge that I have.
Yeah.
But you had experience in this with divorce because of all those difficulties. Like, I mean, I may be jumping the gun here, but would you just rank those as is that the number 11 spot?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
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 Yep. So that's exactly what it is. So I got divorced at the bottom. It's very difficult. It's a super, super hard transaction, really hard transaction to get through. So I just don't highly recommend that the agent who is just getting started, like prioritize divorce. All right. So let's debate these last two. Well, I think this is easy too. Um, we've got bullseye prospecting and circle prospecting. Now, let's give context and then the audience will say, oh, yeah, there's a clear winner here. So, the whole idea of like circle prospecting is kind of like geographic farming. It's like, hey, go pick an area and then do the shotgun approach. Just go try to communicate with everybody to find somebody who's looking to move. Okay.
Yep.
Can it work? Sure. If you do enough of anything, it can work. Bullseye prospecting is kind of the same thing on steroids in that we're going to go into a geographic area, Tucker, as you know, and rather than just being random and taking the shotgun approach, we're actually going to go a layer deeper and create a more targeted list of people whose homes have sold and not just sold. It's different than just a just sold call in that it sold in a multiple offer situation. So it had low days on market with multiple buyers. So we know that the demand for buyers in that in that specific neighborhood is really high. And so we can take and leverage that conversation with the other homeowners because we already know that when people sell, the other homeowners that are thinking about selling, A, pay attention to what's going on. And then B, it's not long after that you see more signs pop up. Boop, 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 right? And so what you're trying to do is leverage something that has already occurred. So you're communicating the facts that something sold with multiple offers, leveraging that conversation into a more targeted conversation around a specific property, which is the reason why you called, versus circle prospecting where it's all random. I don't know how you see it.
Yeah. No, I see it exactly the same way. Circle prospecting, I mean, it's just kind of you're going in kind of blind to it. Like you don't know, like you really have no idea like if there's pain, if there's motivation, anything at all. With bullseye, it might just be that seeing the other house, seeing some proof of concept, that might be the motivation they need in order to get the home sold. But you and I both know people don't sell based off price. There's some kind of life change they need to sell, but that might be the extra little 1-2% nudge. It's going to push them over the edge to finally list the home on the market or at least sit down, have a conversation with us. And then they say, hey, you know what? I really enjoyed the conversation. Little Timmy's going to graduate from high school next year. When we go to market, like we're going to be using you.
Yeah.
So, and who knows? Maybe they'll sign with you sooner than that and go to market sooner than that too.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's give the audience, the people, the diehards that are still here on this episode, 45 minutes later, whatever it is. Most people have clicked off of this video way before this. When you look at the analytics on a 45-minute video, 10 minutes in, everyone's gone. They don't. I mean, it's not TikTok, so if it's over 30 seconds, people don't have the attention span. But for the people that are still here, let's give them a little bonus. You okay with that?
Let's do it.
I want to break down something that we call contact distribution. And so the way that we look at that is, so if we were to coach an agent, Tucker, we would break down their business model and we'd come up with, okay, we have the who, right? So we just kind of solved the who. But the other question is, well, how many do I need? How many people do I have to talk to accomplish my goals? And so what I want to give people is a simple framework to say, okay, let's just pretend that they're going to do what I call the daily 30, the dirty 30, which is 30 contacts per day. It's 7,200 contacts over a full-time agent schedule over the year. If an agent does that, they're going to do just fine. They'll make, six figures or multiple six figures in a year. You agree with that so far?
Absolutely. If you're making 30 contacts a day, you're going to have to try to fail. Like
That's
you
right.
are, it's tough to fail when you're talking to most agents don't talk to 30 people in a month, one person per day.
That's right.
You're I mean, you're talking to 900 to 1,000 people in a month. It's going to be tough to have an unsuccessful business.
That's right. So then the other recommendation that we always say is, okay, when it comes to, because today we only talked about one strategy, your outbound prospecting strategy. There's multiple different strategies. We're only talking about outbound prospecting. And so with inside of this strategy, we say pick 3 to 5 sources, right? So if someone, it makes this really, 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 really simple that if someone were to say, okay, I'm going to pick 5 of these sources, and let's just say they pick the top 5. Let's go like this. Because that's how we just ranked them, right? And they would say, okay, well, you just ranked them for me. I might as well just pick the top 5. Then the easiest way to simplify this, and I don't know if you see it differently, but all you have to do is say, okay, all I have to do is break this down. If I need 30 conversations, most people are so overwhelmed with that number, right? But if they break it down by source, they make their prospecting morning routine based on almost like a checklist. It makes it way easier where they say, okay, I just have to have 6 conversations with early expireds per day. I have to have 6 conversations here, right? 6 here, 6 here, 6 here, just as an example, to get to my 30 conversations. You just break it up. So now you can go, okay, it might take you like an hour per each one of these. To hit your goal, which is pretty accurate, right? It might take you between 4 to 5 hours per day of prospecting to hit your daily 30. That's probably pretty accurate. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then you just break it down. You do an hour calling early expireds, take a break. An hour of calling your for sale by owners, take a break. An hour of daily expireds, take a break, et cetera, et cetera. And you do 4 or 5 of those call blocks and you look up, it's time to go to lunch. And it's like, dude, you had your 30 conversations. You've done more before lunch than most agents do in a month, to your point. Do you see that differently on the contact distribution and how to break this up?
I mean, you laid it out. I mean, it doesn't have to be the top 5, right? I mean, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are on this call. They're probably sitting there asking themselves, well, my market doesn't have a lot of FISBOs. My market doesn't have a lot of, I
Yeah,
mean, how often do we hear that? Brandon, can I work with you? I don't have a lot of expireds and for sale by owners in my market. What am I supposed to do? It's, well, I don't know. I mean, you have 6 other sources here that you can call. Pick some
exactly.
out.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't, that's such a good point. It doesn't have to be the first 5. Like, you can build your entire business off downsizers. There's tens of thousands in your market of people that are retiring, and you could build an entire business off that. You could pick 3. You could say absentee owners, old expireds, and for rent by owners. You could pick probate downsizers and bullseye. Pick 3 to 5. It could be any of those, and it doesn't matter what market you're in, whether you get new expireds or, because you're right. That's probably the biggest question. Why don't I get enough expireds? Who cares? The next episode that we don't have time to get into is the argument for not having expireds in your lead generation model at some point is another argument to be had, right? So
Right.
like, we're not going to get into that now, but like, if you don't have the expires, it's not even an option. It may not be a bad thing. And you know where I would go with that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like, okay, so I'm in Austin, Texas, right? There's just not a lot of for sale by owners out here. I don't know what it is about our market. We just don't have a lot of for sale by owners. So what am I going to do? Am I going to throw my hands up and be like, well, this entire strategy doesn't even work because I don't have for sale by owners. So Brandon will rent it. And his stuff doesn't work. No, I mean, if you want to know what my like lead pillar stack is, I'm calling early expireds when they come off the market. I'm calling my daily expireds in the morning. I'm usually running through old expireds and probates. And then after that, I'm hitting some circle dialing or move ups, downsides, some demographic prospecting, as we call it. That's
Yep.
what I'm going through. Those are my 4 or 5 sources.
And last thing I'll add, the other thing that matters that we didn't talk about at all is your own personality. So if you're a driver personality like Tucker, your lead stack will look different than if you're an amiable. And if you're an expressive, your lead stack might look different than if you're an analytical. That also plays a portion to how you're going to build out your prospecting model.
I'm not exactly the most emotional, pathetic person. So when I am calling probates, I have to try very hard to turn that on and to try and empathize with someone and relate to them. It's very difficult to do that for me. But I know that there's some good opportunities there. So I turn it on, I learn that skill. For other people, someone who is more naturally empathetic probates might be a great source for you. Divorce might be a great source for you. We ranked it the last, but if you're someone who's highly empathetic and you've got some experience, divorce might be someone that you want to consider incorporating down the line, even though we ranked it last.